Hello, and welcome back to the Okanagan Reader. I'm your host, Jim Bowering. Today's reading is Chapter 16 of Green Comet, the first book in the Green Comet trilogy. In Chapter 16, we learn how hard it is to get reintegrated with the body and its senses after hibernation. As Elgin's senses get better organized, he looks forward to his common sense of synesthesia returning. Like and subscribe. Thank you. Here we go then.
Chapter 16. Elgin has vertigo. Elgin wasn't ready for the vertigo. Not that he hadn't been warned about it. Before entering hibernation at the beginning of the voyage, their orientation had made a point of it. Everyone was fully aware of the effects of waking from a long sleep after the body's senses have been inactive for so long. Stanton had reminded him just yesterday, and Elgin had already discovered how odd sensations could be when they were first rediscovered. And he'd already suffered the effects of vertigo, the room spinning when he tried to lift his head. Still, he wasn't ready for the vertigo. Experts on the subject generally agreed with the hypothesis that the systems involved in perception didn't return to proper functioning smoothly or in a coordinated way. In the case of the sense of balance, the motion sensors in the inner ear might stutter to life and start sending signals to the brain before it knows what to do with them. But once the person relearns how to process it, they just get a little dizzy if they move their head too abruptly. The proprioceptive sense of balance was a different matter. It was more primitive, being concerned with the position and orientation of the body. When it came back to find itself in microgravity, it reacted with a rush of panicky demands to the brain. The third day was usually the worst, although it varied with each person. Elgin was right on average. He felt different as soon as he woke up, but it wasn't until Stanton came in the room that all hell broke loose. All he did was move his eyes a little to look at him, and his universe spun itself to pieces. He had to close his eyes to shut out the vortex, but his inner world was a wild gyre too. It was a good thing that wakers didn't eat anything for the first few days, or it would be even worse. But that was only the surface of it. His proprioceptive sense had just awakened with a spike of power, and it became aware of its situation with the same sporadic confusion as the rest of his senses had. Until it found itself, it could only be sure of one thing. In the microgravity, it was certain it was falling. It bombarded his brain with desperate messages, uncontrolled torrents of mortal danger. Elgin still had one little pocket of rationality where his mind could find refuge, and there he knew that the danger wasn't real, that this was normal and expected. But he couldn't convince the rest of his brain of that. It was reacting to the amplitude of the warning from something with much more seniority than his cognitive self, and it did so with a matching level of terror. Stanton glanced at the readouts and administered a strong sedative. Elgin slid into sleep with relief. After a few hours of thankfully dreamless sleep, Elgin woke to find Stanton still at his bedside. He felt as if he'd just been out for a minute, such was the power of the drug. He had a panicky moment when he felt some persistent effects of the vertigo, but he was able to quell it. His body must have acclimatized somewhat while he was out. "How are you feeling?" asked Stanton. Elgin's eyes naturally moved to his minder's face, causing a little swell of dizziness. He grabbed the bed with both hands, but it passed just about right away. "I think I'm okay," he said. "Good. That hit you pretty hard, didn't it?" "Bloody right." They shared a wry chuckle. "The orientation couldn't prepare a person for that. Is it always that bad?" "From what I've heard, and experienced," Stanton added, winking, "this is about average. Maybe a little worse." He saw the near disbelief on Elgin's face. "Really," he said, "some people have to be kept sedated for days. Everyone eventually gets over it, though." Elgin was grateful for small blessings. He couldn't imagine enduring several days of that raw fear. As it was, he wondered if he could face future hibernations, knowing what their wakings would bring. "Don't worry," said Stanton. "According to red and orange comets, the effect is greatly reduced after the first time." "That's a relief," said Elgin. "I feel okay now, but that was just awful. I don't think it would be easy to convince myself to go through that again." "Same here," chuckled Stanton. "But you're actually still going through it, technically," he said, glancing down. Elgin realized that he was still gripping the edges of the bed. He tried to let go, but his hands wouldn't obey him. "You're still getting a small dose of equilibrium. Your body is just about as scared as it was before, but it shouldn't be bothering you too much." Elgin checked and found that it wasn't. "How long before I'm completely over it?" "Usually by the end of the third day people are off the drugs, although some people still need something for the dizziness for another day or two." "So I'll still be dizzy tomorrow?" "Probably." He saw Elgin wasn't happy with that. "It will be mild, though, and once you're up and moving around, it goes away pretty quickly." "I'll be able to get up tomorrow?" "You'd better." Stanton grinned at him. "I want to put you to work." "I look forward to that." Elgin looked around the room, slowly and carefully, not moving his eyes or his head too abruptly. But most of the engineering details were obscured by either medical equipment or finishing details. It was interesting to see those details, but what he really wanted was to see how the place was put together. "I know what you mean," said Stanton. "I remember how impatient I was when I woke up." He laughed at the memory. "Once the vertigo settled down to a tolerable level, I just wanted to get going, to do what I came here for." "Exactly," said Elgin, beginning to nod before he caught himself. But something confused him. "When did you first wake up? Which cohort are you in?" He was wondering how Stanton could be planning to work with him when he must be about due to go back into hibernation himself. "Well," said Stanton, "it's not that clearly defined anymore." He did a complete scan of the instruments reporting Elgin's condition. Satisfied, he nodded and told the machine to lower the level of equilibrium slightly. "It didn't take long to figure out that we couldn't just swap everybody in and out every 20 years. We needed to maintain some kind of continuity, so the planners set up a system to stagger things a bit." Elgin's knuckles didn't get any whiter from clutching the bed, so he left the dose at the new setting. "I'm technically in the third cohort, but I started late, and I didn't want to miss out on this joining project, so I requested an extension, which was granted." Elgin was impressed by that. His new boss must have a lot of pull, or he must be a very good engineer. He felt oddly proud, as if he belonged to something special. It was nice to join a team that played in such a league, to work with a leader of such stature. There must be plenty of engineers coming up for their turn of waking, and they would have to wait until after the joining, the most interesting engineering problem ever, because the planners chose to keep Stanton in charge. He looked at his minder, his face showing profound admiration, approaching awe. Stanton caught the look. "Uh-oh," he said. "I think it's time to reduce the oxytocin." Gradually, Elgin returned to normal and found himself embarrassed by his display. "Don't worry about it," said Stanton. "The oxytocin really helps people feel good about their situation, which improves their recovery." He winked at Elgin. "I won't take it seriously if you don't." Elgin was blessed with good sense. He was able to laugh at himself. "It's a deal," he said, and they shared a good laugh. Not too good, though, since he wasn't sure what might happen if he laughed too hard. True to Stanton's word, by the end of the day he was off the equilibrium altogether. He felt much more comfortable in his body, and he even managed to make his hands let go of the bed. Now the only thing holding him down on it was the forest of tiny cilia in the sheet that hung onto him the way a gecko's foot hangs onto a wall. That simple invention made sleeping in microgravity much more natural. They didn't have to sleep in a bag or strap themselves onto the bed. The gecko sheets clung enough to hold them down, but not so much that it was hard to roll over. Now that his sense of balance was calmer, he was able to take stock of the rest of his senses, and he found them to be functioning normally. Or at least they were normal enough that he couldn't see anything too far out of whack. The orientation had also said that the senses would recover in the first few days, but that some fine-tuning might go on for a few weeks after that. The only thing missing was synesthesia. He knew it would come last, after everything else was in place. Since it was a meta-sense or an episense, it needed the others to be functioning before it could work properly. Already he was noticing little things as it began to get organized, but he knew that the full effect, the whole common sense of synesthesia, would take another day or two to rebuild.